You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
I'm Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. The ChrisVossShow.com. It's an acapella, but it's awful. At least the operator sings. I think I'm going to C&D from her. She's going to be saying, "You can't sing with me. That just doesn't work. It sounds awful. You're offending my trade and business." So I'm sure that will be coming from Fiverr, whoever the hell put it up to us. So thanks for joining us again, my family and friends. We certainly appreciate it. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to be talking about stuff that, we've been talking a lot about health and exercise and all this crazy stuff lately. But we're going to depart from some of that. We're going to be talking about AI and robotics and all the cool technology stuff. It's going to be like the old days before 2020 when we used to just do Silicon Valley stuff. And so we're going to get into the future. The future. We don't have sound bites, people. We can't afford that. We can barely afford the opera singers to do the intro. Or me, for that matter. I mean, I'm a whole $5 a day, man. So I break the bank just for my talent fee. And that's what I have to split with my agent too. So anyway, guys, we're going to be talking about it today. But as always, we have to do the guilt and shaming of the plugs. Now, we have pretty easy guilt and shaming plugs. We don't run these stupid commercials. I can't stand listening to podcasts that have like these 5-minute commercials at the beginning. You're just like, get me to the meat. I want to know what's inside this thing before I sign up to your 5 minutes of ads. And we don't do that. That's one of the great things. So remind that as people when you refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Tell them to go to Chris Voss, at youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. Subscribe to the big LinkedIn newsletter, the Chris Voss one on the Tickety Talkety, and goodreads.com/Chris Voss. And that's it. See, wasn't that painless? And I do it really fast. I do it. Someone said to me one time, they were going, "Why do you always do the plugs fast?" I'm like, because everyone kind of knows them. And I just have to remind them what they do. And, it's like kind of like that shot. When you go in for the flu shot, the nurse just runs up to you and jabs you and runs off. That's the way it goes. Or, a lot of married guys do that too. Anyways, we have an amazing gentleman on the show, and he's going to be talking to us about a really cool product that he has. And we're going to get into it, down with it, and all that stuff, whatever the cool kids say these days. Harout Markarian is on the show with us today. He's the founder and CEO of MARKBOTIX, an assistive robotics company that's reimagining independent living, accessibility for the elderly, and those living with disabilities. With 15 years in the aerospace and defense industry under his belt, he has found a new purpose in developing robotics to revolutionize assistive technology in support of all mobility-challenged individuals and their caregivers. After earning a master's in robotics and an executive MBA, he founded MARKBOTIX, where he is setting a new standard for how to provide support, assist, and increase independence for those requiring assistance. MARKBOTIX works in close partnership with the community to center their needs and experiences. And he hosts the podcast Mobility and the Inclusion and authored a book of the same name. Welcome. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs?
Well, haroutmarkarian.com, markbotix.com, LinkedIn, Instagram. Those are the places that I'm mostly active in.
There you go. And so you've launched this company. Give us a 30,000 overview in your words of what it is and what you guys do there.
So we're developing assistive robotics, as you mentioned, to kind of redefine how we care for older adults and people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. Because there's came to my attention that we have, caregiver burnout, shortages, and more people are getting older, right? Mm-hmm. The elderly population is actually tremendously increasing. Mm-hmm. Today, I think we spent yearly $50 billion on medical costs related to fall injuries. So we wanted to kind of address that. We want to address the caregiver burnout, and we ultimately want to give these people better quality of life, right? Yeah. because we want to allow for positive aging and for people to age and live their life with dignity. And that's our goal.
There you go. And this hits home for me because my mom, my sister has MS, and she's had it since 19, but over the last, I think it's 10, 15 years, she's been in care centers. She's in one now. And it's a nightmare to try and get not only, the care center people do their jobs. They staff them so thin now. They just don't do their jobs. And she's, my mother's constantly having to advocate for, my sister's care and make sure she gets the maintainment care. And then she has a lot of burnout.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It grinds on her. It wears on her. She sometimes, doesn't know what's going on with the care center, gets calls from my sister, has to go up there, see what the hell's going on, and all this sort of good stuff. So evidently you guys are developing some robotic devices to help with this.
Correct. So, I mean, the way we started this thing is when I experienced the challenges of caring for someone. In my situation was my grandparents. Both of them, due to old age, become completely dependent on caregivers, and to hire a professional caregiver, if you can find them available, they're super expensive. They're not affordable. So we kind of opted out of that and opted into hiring just anybody who's willing to take the job for a reasonable compensation, right? And of course, I saw my mother, my aunt, and everybody around them, suffer and, give away some of their lives to care for their parents, grandparents, and because we love them, right? And we want them to provide.
They took care of us too when we were pooping our diapers.
So I realized that there's a huge gap here in, that transition, that when that transition happens from being fully able to take care of yourself, now you're fully dependent on other people to take care of you. So, I can't imagine how that must feel for the individual, let alone be the person who's caring for them. And, there's AARP, actually, this is a side note, AARP estimated that the unpaid caregiver market is at $600 billion.
Wow.
Think about that. So, such as my mom, like me, we're considered unpaid caregivers, that we sacrifice the things that we have to do. And when I say sacrifice, I mean it in a nice way, because we all have to work to pay for our, for our bills, right? We have to go to work, so we can't be there all the time. So we're having to kind of split our time to care for someone. So, that's how it started, the spark. It sparked me into looking into this further. But then I was like, okay, how can I help? How can I really add value here, and not at a shallow level? Like, really, I didn't want to be one of those people that sits behind a computer and, designs something and puts it out there and shoves the technology down people's throat, right? I wanted this to be really valuable and impactful in people's lives.
Wow.
So that's why I did the book and the podcast. I no longer do the podcast because I never in a million years I thought I would ever start a podcast, let alone, deal with the post-production, pre-production. And I'm like, that's not for me.
A lot of work.
Yeah. So, but the reason I did it is because during the pandemic, that was the only way I could interact with my target customers, right? The people who I was trying to serve. And before doing any product, I interviewed over 1,000 people between in-person interviews and podcast interviews. And from there, wrote a book, how robotics could be helpful in the lives of the elderly, people with disabilities, how it can contribute in increasing the quality of their lives. And from all these efforts, we stumbled upon the robotic technology that today we call it GRACE, the Ground Robotic Assistant for Care Enablement. And we currently focus on 4 main tasks: retrieval, communication, inspection, and infection control. And this is based on the feedback that we got primarily from assisted living facilities.
So does it help, like, say I need to get a drink across the room, or
absolutely,
I dropped something, I need it picked up? I know how this works. I don't know how your product works, but I know how this works for people disabled, that you're trying to get things picked up when you're locked into, these giant wheelchairs sometimes that they're locked into. These people don't have a lot of mobile range. You drop something on the floor, something falls off the bed. My sister's like always looking for a remote. Sometimes she's looking for the nurse call thing. And then food maybe brought to them, or go pick me up a gang of Harley Davidson people to come hang out with me and have some beers, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the retrieval part of things, right? So of course we're building in other features as well. But you mentioned wheelchairs, so I had a friend who I interviewed, and his story is in the book too. The book is called Mobility and Inclusion, which I hate the name at this point, because inclusion took all sorts of wrong turns.
Oh, that did.
This guy's name is Eric, and he became a friend. And he came to me one day. He said, "Look, man, I was trying to pick up my my phone that I dropped, because his dexterity, he had low dexterity, right? So he dropped the phone, and he tried to grab it, and he fell off the wheelchair. Now he can't get back on his wheelchair. He had to wait for 3 hours for his caregiver to come and pick him up, give him his phone. So all that can be, it's preventative, right? So we're trying to do that preventative care, so people won't have to live that kind of life.
There you go. You quote Ralph Waldo Emerson: "What lies behind you and what lies in front of you pales in comparison to what lies inside you."
Yeah.
Which for me is about 8 different personalities that all fight each other constantly.
Yeah.
So there you go. I love Ralph Waldo Emerson. Great stoic.
Yeah.
And so you've got the book there. And so with the robot that you're building, this Grace is a ground robot assistance for care. Enable it. Tell us. I can see some different pictures that you have on Instagram. And tell us kind of what it looks like. How tall is it? How big is it? Is it designed to kind of like be the size of a nurse, or maybe smaller?
No, it's smaller. It's I mean, when it has an expandable or extendable, I should say, body, so to reach higher heights. And so the tallest it can be is about 5 feet, and when the arm is extended, it's over 6 feet.
Oh wow!
So it's considerable height, and of course we're at the beginning stages. We might change it based on needs, but that's how we're going to market. That's our initial design. We actually followed universal design principles, and for those who don't know universal design principles, and in simple ways, is to come up with product or service that can be used by anyone regardless of their abilities. Right. That's the idea behind universal design. So in terms of the bulkiness, we made sure that it can be used in homes, although our first target customers are going to be the assisted living facilities. We already have letters of intent from them, and that's because it was easier to get into to do a launch for that market versus do in-home care stuff.
Yeah.
So
I know it's important. I know it's important to people like my mom. I believe you should be able to pass away in your home. In my sister's case, I mean, it takes 3 people to bathe her, change her, and lift her. She's pretty much become a dead weight with her MS. And at that point, you have to be in a facility. But I know there's a lot of old people that really would like to, spend the final years in their home.
Absolutely.
No one wants to be in a hospital. I mean, I can't think of anybody who's like, gee whiz, I get to be in a hospital when I die. Woo, let's do that. It being in your home, it just gives you a much more place of comfort. I remember when my father had his last strokes, he did not want to be put into a hospice care or any sort. He wanted to be home. Yeah. And it was a really big deal for him. And they didn't have any choice on his last one. He had to go to hospice care because they needed, his 24/7 care for him. And it was only going to be for a short time, but he was gone within a day or two because I think he was just so brokenhearted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not being able to be near the love of his life, his wife, it just crushed him. So having a bot like this around the home, my mom took care of my sister for as long as she could in the home. She built her whole basement so to help my sister out and took care of her until she just couldn't lift her anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is really important to people. And so if you could have a device like this that a robot that could help with, someone being at home, even an older parent, really, when it comes down to it, they don't really have to be disabled. It could be just someone who's older and wants some help.
Absolutely. My neighbor, she was in her maybe early 70s or mid 70s. I mean, she was, she looked good, but she had a hip replacement surgery, right? And she was a little bit on the heavier side. And one day she was trying to pick up some Amazon box that was delivered to her door, right? And she fell and hit her head. And when you're at that age and you experience a fall, you kind of take things to the worst, right? Health-wise.
And it can kill you too. I mean, that's usually how a lot of old people, they have a bad fall, break a hip, and you're like,
yeah. So all that can be preventable with this robot, and that's what we're trying to do. And the cool thing about the robot is that it can be remotely operated. Mm-hmm. So let's say I have one at my grandma's house right now, and I can remotely log into it, see my grandmother, talk to her.
Wow.
Yeah, she can talk back to me, and let's say she can't operate the robot, I will be able to operate the robot from here, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so we have that technology. We have that. Today actually we filed the the non-provisional patent. So far it was provisional. As you can imagine, all those cost money, right, to do. So we were as a new startup, we're kind of doing things methodically. So we're cautious with the way we spend our dollars. So today, actually, we filed the non-provisional patent for all these technologies.
Congratulations, man!
Thank you.
No, this is highly needed. According to your website, 10,000 people turn 65 every day. Mm-hmm. We have the big baby boomer generation going into retirement. They're going to want to need a care. They've got the money for it. I mean, some people do. But the older population is the largest consumer of healthcare and the fastest growing segment of the broader consumer market. I'm hoping a lot of them are going to be the people who, create a lot of innovation because their demand and the money and the investments we can put into this. Now, you're seeking investors for this. One of the things you're trying to do here today is help raise awareness and reach and find investors to invest in it. Tell us about what you're offering there.
That's correct. So, we try to, as much as possible, de-risk the investment. Mm-hmm. And the way we did that, as I said, we did the customer discovery. We developed a prototype and tested it with over 300 people. Now we have 200 letters of intents from, people seeking in-home care, 37, I think, from assisted living facilities. Mm-hmm. This is not counting the memory care facilities that we're talking to, the Veterans Administrations. So all that is in the pipeline as well. And we're seeking right now $2 million. So we're probably doing on a safe note, but we're flexible. At the end of the day, we want to provide value, and we want to be in a situation where both the investor and us are winning by serving the target market.
There you go. Kelly has a good question from LinkedIn. Curious to know how the elderly adopt to this type of technology. She has older family members that she believes would reject this concept because technology bad, maybe. Thanks, Kelly.
That's a good point. And I had, I should say I had 70-30, 74-30 against, kind of based on my research and feedback, me talking to people. Most of them initially, especially in assisted living facilities, they're most of them at first they're kind of reserved about it, and then they get acquainted with it, and kind of they see that they're just there to augment their capabilities. That's all they're there to do, nothing more. And we're trying to we're trying to make the interaction between the human and the robot kind of seamless, easy. So we're to diminish or reduce that adaptability or I guess high resistance of adaptability. As it is for homes, we can put the controls in your hand. Like Kelly, I believe the person who asked the question. So we can give you the controls, right? Let's say they don't want to deal with the robot, but Kelly can't be there all the time, right? So she'd be able to, remotely log into the robot, see them, watch them, as I said, talk to them, maybe do something for them, remotely in the house. And, eventually they're going to get used to, once they see that, this is benefiting them and it's allowing them to live more independently. Now they don't have to call Kelly every time, they need something, or Kelly doesn't need to be worried about their parents when she's not around, right? Calling them, they're not answering the phone, or whatever the situation may be. She has that peace of mind on one side, and the other side is like, their quality of life is being better. Their independence is improving, and I didn't find a lot of people say no when you tell them you're going to be independent with this robot, right?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. That has been my experience, at least. Again, I talked to over 1,000 people between elderly and people with disabilities, assisted living facilities, and that's how kind of the feedback that I've received.
Yeah, I know it's really important to my mom. She's like, she wants to be able to do whatever she can and whatever she wants.
Yeah.
It's really important for her to do that as long as she can. She really feels it's a loss of freedom if she has to ask other people for help and do stuff. But the one thing I can see coming from this, though, does it talk? I mean, is it like Google or Alexis or anything where you can have a conversation with it and ask it for stuff?
It can. That's not what we're focusing on.
Okay.
We're focusing on, me as a caregiver, let's say for my grandparent, or you for your mom, let's say, right, or your sister. We can do FaceTime when we're not there, right? When we're in different locations, we can do FaceTime, like similar to iPhone, right? So I can see her, she can see me, we can talk. The robot has alerts at this point, right? But it's not to a point where it's fully conversational with the individual, because such robot already exists, and we didn't want to mimic them. But we made the robot in a way that third-party apps could be downloaded on it. And
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's part of the patent, actually, that, this is a platform that other third-party apps would be able, much like your iPhone, that you can download apps on it and use third-party apps. You can do the same with this robot.
Yeah. One thing I can see is, a lot of people that are elderly, they suffer from loneliness and depression. And, sometimes people have pets. Some people don't like pets. And this might be a way, that there can be that interaction. And if you can call into it and talk through it, check in throughout the day on your loved one, and they can hear your voice, and you can see them, you can see what's going on. It takes away the edge of loneliness, because loneliness, I think, in depression is a killer too.
Absolutely. That's a big epidemic, by the way, that we have in the United States. Yeah.
Wow. And so, that makes it so much more simpatico. I hate to kind of grandstand this as, it's all about me and my sister, but I'm just kind of using this example of the problems that you're solving. My sister will call my mom. I haven't been fed today. I haven't gotten a shower today. My sister's in dementia from the MS, so we don't know what's truth or reality. And so sometimes my mom just has to drive up there to the facility just to see what's going on, check on her. see if she's really been fed. You know, sometimes she doesn't remember. I mean, she has dementia. You know, make sure she's in her bed. Sometimes, you know, they have all these temp workers now that come in and out. It's a real nightmare. It used to be a lot of the care centers were privately owned by family, and, you know, guys like me who were like, hey, we'll start a care center and stuff. And then these corporations came in and just bought them all. Yeah. And, you know, paid a pretty good price for them. And, you know, the first thing to do is scale back the employees, the services. You're like, oh, where do all the people go? I used to work here. And then with COVID and the fight over employees, where, you know, everyone's fighting over employees right now. Yeah. They have trouble keeping the staff up. And so there's constantly these temp workers in, and there's kind of a question of how much they care. There's the Gen Z workers, question of how much they care. Yeah. And it's hard work, you know. It is hard work. Changing adult people's diapers, and they're demented, and you know, they say all sorts of stuff to you because dementia people don't have a filter. You know, you have to take it with a grain of salt. My sister said some things to me that I'm just like, okay, well, that happened, and you can't react. You can't get angry with them because they don't understand. It's like a child, you know. And but I can see having that video camera, being able to interact, and then, you know, a lot of times what my mother's trying to do is she's trying to call the desk at the nurse's desk that, hey, did she eat today? What's going on? And if that robot could be in her room, is what I'm saying, and interact with Delana, we could have a record of people coming and going. We could talk to a nurse, maybe this in the hallway, you know, where the bot could go out and the nurse. You know, I can see a lot of applications for this, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we tried to take our bias out of the equation when we were developing this robot, right? So we tried to see if there's really a need for such a thing, right? We didn't want to be, you know, just someone, oh, hey, we have a cool new shiny toy, come look at it, right? So it's like part of it is because we went through that. Like me, I personally went through that. I know the challenges. I know the difficulties, whether they're monetary difficulties, or whether they're physical difficulties, or whether they're difficulties related to someone's dignity, right? All that plays a role into how this robot is coming together to add value to people's lives.
I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. I think it's definitely needed. I mean, just from my use case, I've been describing, and I know that the conditions are similar. My sister's been in like 7 care centers, and there's so much of a need for what you're doing. It's insane. And then the money that Medicare pays for this stuff is insane. My sister was lucky. She had a whole lot of money from disability, her disability insurance, for her MS. And so she had pretty much a value of a house saved up. But I mean, the money that they spend every month on these before she had to go to Medicare or Medicaid, whichever, I never can tell the difference, it was extraordinary. And so there's a lot of money in this business to take care of people, and as in a government, we spend the money to take care of people that you know, we need to take care of everybody. And so I think there's a lot of money into it. So you guys are looking to raise $2 million. Is that correct again?
Correct. Yep.
Just want to make sure. And then it could come in, you could do are you guys doing a seed round or a round or any of that venture capital stuff, or you guys looking for private investors, or?
Right now, I think we're more looking for private investors, not VCs a lot. Okay. I should say that so far the project was bootstrapped, right? All these efforts were bootstrapped. So right now we're at a point where, okay, we have some market validation, we have product market fit. So okay, we can ask for that first round of capital. So, and that's where we are. There a lot of VCs have shown interest, but they always come back and ask me, okay, do you have a lead investor? And I'm like, no, I thought you said we
want you to lead.
Yeah. So, but once that conversation happened, they kind of backed out. That has been the experience so far. But we're talking to a few people right now. So hoping for the best, and we'll see what happens.
There you go. Well, I think it's an excellent thing that needs to be done. There's so many different, there's so many different ways that this can be applied.
Yeah.
People in homes that don't want to go to a hospice care home, being able to check in on grandma or mom, dad, whatever, being able to have that interaction. It's hard taking care of people. I've seen the grind that it wears on my mom for hospice care. That there's a whole bag of depression and losing sleep. She's constantly losing sleep because she's worried about what's going on at the care center. And my sister, I went through hospice care with my dog for a year and a half. Being a caretaker grinds you down. It is really hard, and you almost need to have a caretaker for yourself, or a psychologist, or somebody that you can kind of go to and talk to issues about, because you see stuff too that's depressing and stark.
Yeah.
It's not fun watching someone wind down their life. It's hard, but anything that can help out in all these different modalities would be incredibly beneficial.
Yeah, for us, if we can do one thing that adds tremendous value to the caregiver and to the individual, we've already won. If just one thing, we do it perfectly, that reduces either a pain, a cost, or improves any type of independence in that individual. We're on the right track already. The other thing that I failed to mention, this is also done to reduce caregiver burnout. So because caregiver burnout is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
Like as of 2022, last year, almost 2 years now, we had 77% turnover rate on caregivers.
Yeah.
So, right. So, people always ask me, so is this replacing the caregivers? I'm like, no, it's not. A, we're not touching patients, so you still need caregivers to touch the patients. B, why would we want to displace caregivers when there's already a shortage of caregivers?
Yeah,
right? We need actually more. So we're actually augmenting caregiver capability so that caregiver can forget about the mundane tasks and kind of focus on the human side of care, because like you mentioned earlier, that human interaction is still needed. Loneliness is a big factor.
Yeah.
And when someone comes to take care of my grandmother, and me at one point, I don't want them to come with a frown on their face. Come happy to my, to my aid. So that's really important. So the other part of it that is like we're trying to work with caregivers to reduce their burnout, their emotional stress, to allow them to render a better service.
And if you can have the bot do, minor tasks that can help out, that can make all the difference, especially if you're a caregiver center that's, trying to, service so many people at once. My mother does Zoom calls with my sister so that they can have a face-to-face interaction. I think that's really important for humans. And it actually activates the brain cells, which is important. And so being able to do that with the bot, see what's going on, would really help everybody in the stress of the situation. And I'm sure it would make people like Delana and others that we see in the home just feel more, more like they have a friend, a buddy. They can't have dogs or cats at the care centers.
It's like including them in society, because a lot of the times they feel isolated.
Yeah. So
it's kind of like bringing them back in.
Definitely. Well, what made you interested in this field? What got you into it? What got you down this road?
I'm an immigrant, right? I was when I came here, I was 24. I turned 24 years old here. And at that point, I had already finished 3 years of college from, in Lebanon. Came here, they said, the institution you went to in Lebanon is not accredited, right? They got accreditation a year after I left.
Oh, man.
So I had to restart everything. And at that time, I was studying mechanical engineering. And I was just doing it just to show the diploma to my parents. I'm like, here, you wanted me to get educated. Just
here you go. Get up my back.
But something really life-changing happened. the final year, we did a senior design project. We built a 6-foot tall, fully autonomous robot from scratch.
Oh, wow.
And we went ahead and won first place at the Autonomous Uncrewed Vehicle System International competition. And, I received the Distinguished Engineering Project Award from California's Engineers Council. So I'm like, I really love working with robots, So I immediately went into, pursuing my master's in robotics. At the time, my thesis dissertation was to build a stair climbing wheelchair that mimicked the spider's legs.
Oh,
right?
really?
Yeah. So I did a scaled prototype added to it, did the design, the programming, everything by myself, basically.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to work with a severely paralyzed person on brain-computer interface technology. So the way that works is like you put a helmet on and anything, and you start thinking of thoughts. And as you think of thoughts, you're kind of sending signals to the motors. In this case, it was a motorized wheelchair. So the wheelchair would be you'd be able to maneuver the wheelchair with your thoughts.
Oh, wow.
Initially, I was working on it because I'm like, hey, it sounds so cool to be able to move things with your mind, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I was working on it. But then when I worked with this individual, and I was sitting on the chair, put a helmet on, trying to think thoughts, and it wasn't as intuitive for me as it was for him. Because for me, I mean, I'm not on a wheelchair, right? But so it was like I'm trying to think of thoughts. Okay, go forward. Like, how do you? So the chair was barely moving, but then he sat on it, and we put a helmet on there, and he started like driving like I'm driving a car, right? I'm like, and I'm seeing the expression on his face, and it's like he's living in a brand new world,
Wow.
And that was the first time a light bulb lit up in my head. I said, I really want to do this. I want to build robotics to allow people to live better.
There you go.
And that was the first time I kind of thought about it. Of course, I was already working in full-time in the aerospace and defense industry. I loved my job. But this was a meaningful moment in my life that kind of triggered me into thinking about starting my own robotics company to assist people live better. And a few years later, as I said, my grandparents, due to old age, kind of became in that, went through all that challenges with them. And I was studying my MBA at the time. And there was a lot of entrepreneurship talks. And I said, okay, this is the time where I kind of, I see the gap. I see the challenges. I think I'd be able to address it. This is the time I, basically incorporated a company and went ahead with it. And that's how it started. After that, it's funny. I incorporated the company, and I received the paper from the government saying, "Oh, you have a company now." And I sat down. I'm like, "Huh, what do I do now?"
What do I do now?
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I need to find me someone to mentor me through all of this. Someone who kind of walked in my shoes 30 years ago, right? And started networking and stuff, and came across this individual whose name is Jeff Hoffman. And he was a keynote speaker at this one event I was at, and he was talking about everything I was going through, basically, from the stage. And as I'm sitting and listening to him, there's maybe 500-600 people in that room, and I'm like, I need to talk to him. I got to talk to him, but I didn't know how. I was like, I'm just one person out of that 500 in that hall. How do I get his attention, right? So they, at the end of his talk, there was a bunch of charities there. And they said, we're going to auction Jeff Hoffman, and, the money that raised is going to go to one of the charities. I'm like, oh, there you go. Perfect opportunity. I didn't care how much it was going to cost me. I'm like, I want to talk to this guy. So long story short, I kind of won the bid, had 1 hour lunch turned into a 4-hour getting to know each other session. Wow. We kind of hit it off, did a mastermind together, and he's my co-founder right now, and he's the former founder of Priceline.com, Ubit.com, Booking.com.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He was one of the people. He's actually the person who put the self-checking kiosks at the airport.
Oh, wow.
So, I needed that person to kind of accelerate my path to becoming a better entrepreneur versus kind of vacillating and misusing other people's money, like investors' money, trying to learn, right? So I'm really glad that he's my partner in this right now, because he's guiding me through a lot of pivotal decision-making stuff that I wouldn't have known had I gone at it by myself.
There you go. And, it's important to have a strong business partner like that, because you don't want to make all the mistakes that new entrepreneurs make, especially when you're trying to get, something that needs investments and something that needs development money off the ground. You're a long ways from profitability, and you really focus on building the product out, proving its viability and marketability. But I think you're on the right track. Like I've been talking about my experiences, and my experiences I've been talking about are some I see with all of the people in the care centers. Delena's been about 5 or 7 care centers over the years, and she's had to kind of amp through certain care, and some facilities are better than others by long shots. And but I see with all the different people when I go there, there's so many people there that look just depressed, that just look alone. Sadly, these centers end up being a dumping ground for old people, and I'm always overjoyed when I see families there come and visit. But we all have busy times to chase our lives and try and make a buck or two. And being able to, do the call-in thing or check on people or help out, I think just can add the value of life, length of life a whole lot more. Can I get one that just about every day or so just reminds them, hey, don't forget to put me in your will?
Maybe.
Just kidding. There you go. As jokes, people, don't get all upset. Don't worry. Don't send hate mail. So give us your final thoughts as we go out, Mark. Pitch to people and your .com so people can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, so Markarian.com, MARKBOTIX.com. That's really MARKBOTIX.com is all you need to know. From there, you can go to all my social links. We also won the Global Innovation Challenge, by the way. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, wow.
A couple of months ago, out of 300 companies that applied.
Nice.
We were in the last 12, and we end up in one of the 6 positions, I think, that was awarded the Global Innovation Challenge, and we were the only one in the space of robotics, for assistive robotics, I should say. So that was another achievement. In terms of final thoughts, we're genuinely trying to add value here. There's a massive gap, and if people resonate with this, we welcome their support, whether that's monetary or just introductions. If other than that, I leave you with a quote that I love, and which says, "God's gift to us is more talent and ability than we can use in our lifetime, and our gift to God would be to develop as much of that talent and ability as we can in this lifetime."
There you go. Well, it's been wonderful, inspiring to have you on. Thank you very much. And anything you can do to make this world better, especially for people that are relying on us to, take care of them. They took care of us in our early years. They put up with all of our stupidness and our poopy diapers and our crying, and they rocked us to sleep. And, in my mind, we kind of owe these folks not only a debt of humanity, but, they took care of our stupid dummies when we were being, stupid dummies. So, I hate this sort of culture that we have that kind of throws away old people and doesn't seem to give them the respect that they deserve and the wisdom. And so many of them, maybe their bodies are kind of old, but their minds are still fairly sharp and stuff. And, it's so hard, I look at my grandparents when they got isolated in their older years. It was so hard on them, and they missed human interaction and being around people so much. So this is so important. Thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thanks to our audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, goodreads.com/Chris Voss. I think I said that. And Chris Voss on TikTok. You guys know the drill. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time.